We wanted to take a moment to note the passing of Don Cornelius, the creator of Soul Train. He died today in Los Angeles at 75, an apparent suicide.
We wanted to take a moment to note the passing of Don Cornelius, the creator of Soul Train. He died today in Los Angeles at 75, an apparent suicide. Soul Train wasn't just a TV show. It was a whole vibe. Bright lights, smooth moves, and legendary music filled every episode. It brought black culture, soul, and style into America's living rooms every weekend. But behind the smiles and dance lines, not everything was perfect. In fact, there was one moment so wild, so unexpected that producers didn't want you to see it at all. This wasn't just a blooper. It shook the show to its core. Some say it even played a part in its downfall. So, what really happened on that stage that day? Why was the show cancelled, and why did it never air again? Join us as we dig into the infamous scene Soul Train tried to hide, the chaos it caused behind the scenes, and how it changed the future of the show forever. The beginning of a cultural movement. Soul Train wasn't just another TV show. It was something special. A true celebration of black music style and culture. It all started in Chicago. Back in the mid-1960s, a local TV station, WCIU, began airing dance shows like Kitty Go and Red Hot and Blues. These shows were a hit, especially the one with mostly African American dancers. That's where the idea for Soul Train began to take shape. Arguing Soul Train was to American band what champagne is to seltzer water. Don Cornelius, who worked at a Chicago radio station, was also hosting live music events at local high schools. He called these events the Soul Train. The crowd loved it, and so did Cornelius. He believed that black music and talent deserved a place on television, and soon that dream came true. With a small budget and black and white cameras, Soul Train premiered on WCIU on August 17, 1970. It was a live afternoon show. The first episode featured Jerry Butler, the highlights, and the emotions. Even though it was simple at first, it had heart, and that's what made it work. Cornelius hosted it with energy, and a local dancer named Clinton Gent helped him out before moving behind the scenes. But Chicago was just the start. Something bigger was coming. But before we talk about that, let's take a closer look at the host who gave life to the show. The show that changed everything. You see, Soul Train wasn't just a show. It was a weekly ritual. Every Saturday, families would sit in front of their TVs waiting for that famous theme song to play. For many, the week didn't feel complete without it. The bright lights, the smooth dance moves, and the cool host made Soul Train a must-watch. It was more than just entertainment. It gave black music, black fashion, and black culture a national stage. People saw themselves on screen, not as background characters, but front and center. The show launched careers, too. Stars like Jod Watley and Rosie Perez got their start there. And over time, Soul Train became the longest-running TV show of its kind. Behind the scenes was Don Cornelius. He wasn't just the host. He was also the mind behind the whole thing. Calm, smooth, and serious, Cornelius brought a cool that everyone remembered. When he died in 2012, fans around the country dressed up in Sevens clothes and danced in tribute. That moment showed just how much Soul Train meant to people. But how did Cornelius come up with the idea, and what made it grow into something so powerful? The birth of a legend. Don Cornelius was from Chicago. He had a strong voice and even stronger style. Before Soul Train, he worked as a radio DJ and news reporter. He also hosted dance parties at high schools around the city. He called them the Soul Train. He would ride the train across Chicago to reach different neighborhoods, bringing music with him. That's where the name came from. Eventually, Cornelius got the chance to put his show on local television. It was small at first, black and white with simple sets, but the energy was real. The dancers brought life to every song, and viewers at home felt like they were part of something new. Nelson George, who wrote The Hippest Trip In America remembered those early days well. He said he and his sister used to sit in front of the TV every Saturday morning in Brooklyn. First it was a small black and white screen, then they got a little color one. They'd watch the moves closely. Later that night at school dances or block parties, everyone would try to copy what they saw. It was a very 360 cultural experience. George said the show wasn't just about music. It taught people how to dress, how to dance, and even how to do their hair. The afro, the bold colors, the California style, it all came through the screen and into homes across the country. It brought joy, and even more important, it brought unity. But it also arrived during a time of serious change in America. A new voice for black culture. When Soul Train started in 1971, the country was still feeling the effects of the 1960s. Civil rights protests had rocked the nation. Black mayors were being elected in big cities for the first time. The fight for equality was still going strong. Into that world came Soul Train. But instead of showing pain or struggle, it showed joy. It showed pride. And it showed celebration. Black music, fashion, and energy filled the screen. It made people feel seen. It brought fun into homes that didn't always get a break from bad news. It also changed business. Big companies saw the power of the show. Slowly, they started advertising during Soul Train. For the first time, many black viewers saw commercials that spoke directly to them. That had never really happened before. It showed that Soul Train wasn't just popular, it was powerful. Don Cornelius made all of this possible. His smooth voice and calm style made him unforgettable. I'm Don Cornelius and is always imparting. We wish you love. In one famous moment, he told James Brown, "You're still the baddest out here." Brown laughed and said he was just trying to keep up with the dancers. Cornelius turned to the crowd and said, "How about it for the Soul Train dancers?" That moment got loud cheers. He always looked cool and in control. Michelle Martin from NPR once said, "He never broke a sweat. He was like a pilot guiding the show no matter what was happening." From local hit to national icon. Because the show did so well in Chicago, Cornelius wanted to expand. He got help from a hair care company called Johnson Products, which made Afro sheen. They agreed to sponsor the show's move into syndication. That meant Soul Train could now be shown in cities outside of Chicago. But in the beginning, only 7 cities picked it up. Atlanta, Birmingham, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. Still, that was enough. Once people saw it, they couldn't get enough. By the end of the first season, all 25 target cities were airing the show. The magic had spread. Back then, there weren't many shows by black creators for a black audience. The only other one on national TV was Soul, a public television show. So, Soul Train was a game share. It gave a stage to R&B soul and later hip-hop artists. Everyone from the biggest stars to new talent wanted to perform on it. When the show went national, it also moved its home base to Los Angeles. Cornelius hosted both the Chicago and LA versions at first, but soon focused only on the national one. Clinton Gent stayed behind to host in Chicago for a while, and then the station just ran old episodes. Cornelius remained the face of Soul Train, and for good reason. He once said, "Love, peace, and soul." And fans never forgot it. That line became legendary. But with fame came pressure, and more changes were on the way. A long run and big changes. From 1971 to 1993, Don Cornelius hosted every single episode of Soul Train except one. That one episode was hosted by Richard Pryor at the end of season 4, but for the rest, Cornelius was always there, smooth, calm, and always in control. In the mid-1980s, the show made a big move. Tribune Entertainment took over the syndication deal. That meant they were now responsible for getting the show on air in more places. Cornelius stayed on as the host and creative leader, and the show kept growing. But after 22 seasons in 1993, Cornelius stepped away from hosting. He still worked behind the scenes, but others took the spotlight for a while. Different celebrities hosted the show. Then in 1997, a new host arrived, comedian Mr. Clark. After him came Shiamar Moore in 2000 and then Dorian Gregory in 2003. These changes gave the show a fresh feel. But some fans missed Cornelius. He had a way of connecting with the audience that was hard to replace. Still, the show kept going, always bringing music and dance into people's homes. Speaking of which, Don Cornelius wasn't just a host. He was the brain behind Soul Train. Don Cornelius had a vision. He had a deep voice, a smooth style, and a sharp business mind. What made him different was how closely he understood the streets and the needs of black people in America. As one writer, Hanif Abdul Rakib said, Don had an eye towards the streets and so therefore he had a distinct understanding of the needs of black folks. Everything about him was cool. His baritone voice, his afro and his confident look gave Soul Train its hip factor. As author Erica Blunt Denoir explained, Soul Train had the hip factor and mostly because Don was so hip. Cornelius didn't just want to entertain, he wanted to own something big. In 1971, Soul Train moved to Los Angeles and began airing across the country. That made Don Cornelius one of the first black men to own and produce a nationally syndicated TV show. He had a choice. Grow fast or grow smart. According to Abdur, Don's thinking was simple. How can I keep this mine? Not every city aired the show at the same time. In places like Oklahoma City, some fans watched episodes a week late compared to other cities. But no matter the delay, people tuned in. It became appointment viewing. One fan, Peter Murray, recalled watching with his whole family in Vermont. In a mostly white town, Soul Train gave them a sense of connection. He said, to be able to see others that looked like us was truly a beautiful experience. If you missed it, you missed out. Everyone had something to say about it on Monday. One of the most loved parts of Soul Train was its dancers. The dancers stole the show. They were young, stylish, and full of life. These weren't trained professionals. They were regular kids picked from the crowd. They brought their own moves, their own clothes, and their own spirit to the dance floor. Erica Blunt Denoir put it best. There was nothing like Soul Train on TV where just regular kids were the stars. These kids were from the neighborhood, kids who hung out at rec centers and danced with friends. Suddenly, they were on national TV showing their moves to millions. Soon, people were lining up around the block just for a chance to be on the show. Dancer Cheryl Song said it was her way of expressing herself. It was so freeing to be able to dance and feel the music, she shared. And she wasn't the only one who felt that way. Randy Thomas, another dancer, said the show gave people a foot in the door of the entertainment world. Don gave professional artists a mainstream platform and unprofessional dancers a place to be themselves. He explained even the fans noticed. Cheryl's song became a favorite. Her long hair almost touched the floor and her dancing stood out every week. Viewers tried to copy her moves at home. The dancers became stars in their own right. Monique M.O. Chambers, also a dancer, said the team became like family. We would clown and just have a good time. She said. On screen, it looked like a big stage, but it was smaller than people thought. Full Force member Belegged Lou visited and said, the set is not as big as I thought it was, but everybody's rocking and rolling. These dancers brought energy, passion, and creativity. They made Soul Train more than just a music show. It was a full experience. And with that came unforgettable performances, music that touched the soul. The stage of Soul Train became home to some of the greatest names in music. From Aretha Franklin and James Brown to Outkast and Mariah Carey, everyone wanted to be on the show. It was a space where artists felt at home, especially black performers who didn't always have a platform on national television. The connection between dancers and musicians was real. Author Christopher Lehman said, the dancers and performers had a symbiotic relationship. That means both sides needed each other. The singers brought the music, the dancers brought the energy, and together they created magic. A perfect example is the Jackson 5. In 1973, they performed the robot dance on Soul Train. But did you know that they learned it from the Soul Train dancers? That's how tight the bond was between the performers and the crowd. There were also unforgettable moments with artists like Marvin Gaye. In one episode, he sat down on stage and talked with fans in the audience just like a neighbor. Abdurraqib said that Don Cornelius made those moments possible by creating a space where even the biggest stars felt like regular people. And then there was Al Green. His voice had so much power that viewers couldn't look away. It's like you're in a church, Blondinoy said. She added, every time I watch it, I have to stop. You're taken in by him. These performances were more than just songs. They were moments. Moments that stayed with fans for life. But when Don Cornelius stepped down, the show changed over time. The styles changed. The music shifted from classic soul and R&B to newer genres like hip-hop. But the show stayed true to its roots, celebrating black talent and culture. And then it all came to an end, the beginning of the end. By the time Soul Train reached its 35th season in 2006, things had changed. The once powerful show that brought soul R&B and hip-hop to millions of viewers was starting to fade. The show stopped making new episodes after the 2005-2006 season. Instead, the producers played old clips from the 1970s and 1980s under a new title, The Best of Soul Train. It was the first sign that something wasn't right. One big problem was the ratings. Fewer people were watching the show. In fact, the Nielsen ratings dropped below 1.0. That's very low for a show that once had millions of viewers. Most of the stations airing Soul Train by then were either Fox affiliates or small independent stations. Many of them moved the show from Saturday afternoons to late nighttime slots. This made it even harder for fans to keep up. Then came another blow. Tribune Entertainment, which had helped distribute the show, announced it was shutting down in 2007. This meant Soul Train had no one to help get it on air. Don Cornelius, the show's creator, tried to save it. He made a deal with Trifecta Entertainment and Media. But even with that deal, things didn't get better. The magic of Soul Train was slipping away. But still, the trouble wasn't just about ratings or TV time. Behind the scenes, a storm was brewing, and it involved the dancers who helped make the show what it was. You see, behind the scenes, there were some hard moments and not all the stories were happy. Behind the music and the moves, not everyone had an easy time on Soul Train. Rosie Perez, a dancer who later became a star, shared her own story. In an interview, she said Don Cornelius pushed her to dance in a way she didn't feel comfortable with. When she refused, things got heated. It became physical. She said, the only thing I could grab was the two-piece Kentucky Fried Chicken dinner they provided us as payment. She threw a greasy chicken wing at Cornelius and hit him in the head. I was mortified, she said. Nelson George explained there was more behind that moment. Cornelius had wanted Rosie to join a music group he was putting together, and she said no. That caused tension. She was one of his favorite dancers for a long time, but after that things fell apart. Still, Cornelius stayed strict about the show's style. He allowed some moves, but didn't want anything he felt was too much. He even made singers redo their performances if they didn't lip-sync correctly. He wanted Soul Train to look polished and sharp. And he was also a smart businessman. Like Desi Arnaz with I Love Lucy, Cornelius owned the show. That was rare back then, especially for a black man in the TV world. He found sponsors and worked with independent stations across the country. It wasn't easy. Nelson George pointed out that the show didn't go national overnight. In some places, it aired late at night, even close to midnight, but slowly, station by station, Soul Train grew. Unfortunately, Cornelius's life didn't end on a high note. His later years were hard. He had a rocky marriage, a painful divorce, and was struggling inside. In 2012, he took his own life. Nelson George said that no one saw it coming. Even Clarence Avant, his longtime business partner, met with him just a week before and said Cornelius seemed fine. Others also felt something was off, but no one expected the end to come so suddenly. And yet, what Cornelius left behind was huge. He built something that shaped culture, style, and music for over 30 years. And to this day, people still remember the line that closed every episode. His voice calm and steady, saying, "We wish you love, peace, and soul." The dancer controversy. Dancers were a big part of what made Soul Train so exciting. Their moves, energy, and style were unforgettable. But years later, some of them spoke up, and what they said shocked many fans. According to a Broadway-bound musical called Hippostrip, the Soul Train musical, dancers were not treated fairly. Some said they weren't paid at all. Instead, they were given exposure and in some cases a meal from Kentucky Fried Chicken. That was it. One dancer said the show's name was forged off the sweat off our backs. Others who created popular dance styles like the Harlem Shake said they also got nothing in return. But it wasn't just about money. Dancers were often put in competition with each other just to get more time on camera. Some were pushed to fight for the best spots near the stage or on the risers. The pressure was real. Even worse, there were reports that Don Cornelius, while married, had inappropriate relationships with some of the dancers. The Los Angeles Times reported these stories, adding more heat to the controversy. It was clear behind the lights and music, the show had serious problems. The public image of Soul Train was clean and stylish, but inside some felt used and ignored. This tension played a big part in the show's slow fall, and soon another kind of trouble showed up. This time, it had to do with the show's videos and who was allowed to share them. Fights over rights and a changing audience. When Don Cornelius still owned Soul Train, he was very strict about how the show's clips were shared. He didn't like fans uploading videos to sites like YouTube. He also didn't want anyone selling old episodes on VHS or DVD without his permission. Copyright laws were used to take many of those videos down. That meant younger fans who were used to watching everything online couldn't easily find Soul Train content. At the same time, Cornelius was dealing with something else, a shift in the music. In the early years, the show focused on soul and R&B. But by the 1980s and 1990s, hip-hop was taking over. Cornelius admitted that he didn't understand the genre. He once told rapper Curtis Blow directly that it wasn't something he connected with. Later, he said that groups like Public Enemy actually frightened him. Even though he still invited rap artists on the show, it was clear he wasn't a fan. According to dancer and choreographer Rosie Perez, Cornelius didn't like the East Coast dance styles either. She said he didn't approve of moves that were too suggestive. He only added more hip-hop because it was popular. But that choice upset older viewers who had supported the show from the beginning. It was a tough balance. And in the end, Cornelius felt out of place. In the early 1990s, he finally stepped down as host. Don Cornelius steps away. In 1993, after more than 20 years, Don Cornelius stopped hosting Soul Train. He stayed on as executive producer, but things were different. Hip-hop had become the main sound in black music and Cornelius wasn't a big fan of the genre. Abdurakib explained that once Don left, the show struggled to find a new identity. None of those people are Don Cornelius, he said about the later hosts. Names like Mistro Clark and Shamar Moore came and went, but no one stayed long enough to make the show feel the same. Without Cornelius, it lost its heart. In 2006, Soul Train ended after 35 seasons, but the love for it never faded. The show gave people a place to feel seen, heard, and proud. It showcased black joy in our everyday lives, said Blunt Denoise. It wasn't just about celebrities. It was about real people dancing after a long week of work. It gave a national stage to local talent that had never been seen before. And it didn't stop at music. The show also welcomed actors, writers, and comedians. Christopher Lehman said that Soul Train proved something important. TV could be diverse. It was not impossible, and it had already done it. For Hanif Abdur, the real joy of the show was simple. It wasn't asking much of me other than, "Isn't this beautiful?" he said, and he was right. After more than 2 decades, Cornelius realized that the show and its audience had changed. The spark was fading, and by 2006 the show was off the air. But the brand wasn't dead yet. A new team stepped in, and they had big plans. New hands, new hopes. In 2008, Don Cornelius sold the rights to Soul Train to a company called Madvision Entertainment. The team at Madvision came from the world of media and publishing. They didn't share the details of the deal, but it was clear they had new ideas. One of the first things they did was open up the Soul Train archives. In April 2009, they launched an official Soul Train channel on YouTube. This was a huge change. Now fans could watch classic clips online. A few months later, Madvision signed a deal with Time Life to release DVDs of the show. This made it easier for new fans to discover the magic of Soul Train. In the same year, Madvision partnered with BET. Together, they brought back the Soul Train Music Awards, airing them on BET's spin-off channel, Centric. They also began showing old episodes on Centric and Bounce TV. Then came another big shift. In 2011, Madvision sold Soul Train to a group led by basketball star Magic Johnson and the firm Intermedia Partners. This group had big dreams. They talked about making a movie based on the show, creating a live stage version, and even launching a cruise. As part of the deal, Magic Johnson's channel, Aspire TV, also began airing reruns. Soul Train was finding new life in new places. Cornelius stayed involved in some ways. He appeared in documentaries and special events celebrating the show, but sadly in 2012, Don Cornelius died by suicide. His death shocked many people. He had created something powerful, something that touched millions, but his final years were full of struggles. Even so, the show he started lived on. In 2013, BET launched the Soul Train cruise. And in 2016, all the rights to Soul Train, the episodes, the awards show, and the cruise were taken over by Paramount Global. Many people called Soul Train the Black American Band. While Cornelius once saw Bandstand as a model, he grew tired of the comparison. He wanted Soul Train to stand on its own, and it did. In 1973, Dick Clark tried to create a copycat show called Soul Unlimited. Cornelius, with help from Jesse Jackson, accused Clark of trying to kill the only black-owned show on TV. The backlash worked, and ABC can-led Soul Unlimited after just a few episodes. Cornelius's vision had survived that battle, but in the end, it was time, controversy, and change that brought the original Soul Train to a stop. Even after the show ended, the Soul Train brand lived on. As of 2016, BET Networks, part of Paramount Global, owns the rights to the show and its brand. That includes the Soul Train cruises and the annual Soul Train Music Awards. The spirit of the show still continues even if the weekly episodes are long gone. Do you think a show like Soul Train could ever happen again today? Why or why not? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history.